Hello, I'm David Stevens with Beliefchangers. Beliefchangers is an organization that's dedicated to helping people discover the abiding life so that you can hear God clearly, serve God openly, and experience the Christian life that you've always wanted to experience. You know, one thing that I found that clogs up the relationship with God more than anything is worry. And when you think about it, what worry really does, it just stops the living water of Christ flowing through your life. And if we could take care of the worry, much of our life would get better. Now, as I've gone on in my Christian life, I've done my share of worry, and I've realized that as I've thought about it, there are 8 different stoplights that I have to run to get onto my way or to get into worry. And you stop and think about, what if you were on an open road and you were driving at 100 miles an hour and you ran a red light? Wow. If you ran a red light at 100 miles an hour and nothing happened to you, you'd be a very fortunate person. Imagine running 8 red lights at 100 miles an hour, what that might be like. No wonder our life, when we are running these red lights, just falls into chaos and worry. But what I did is I took a look and I thought, what are these red lights, these 8 red lights, and what can we do in stopping before we go through them so that we don't end up in worry? Well, let me take you through the process that I've seen happening in my own life that gets me down into worry. The first thing is this. Everything seems to start with an unsettled thought or feeling in my life. Now, what I mean by that is this. Have you ever just been going on in life and you just have this feeling or this sense inside of you that says something's not right? You can't pinpoint it. You actually don't know exactly why, but you just know that something's wrong. In fact, there's just no center to your thoughts or your feelings. Now, if you're like me and those thoughts have come, you don't like them. So when that happens and that unsettled thought or that unchecked thought or feeling occurs and you don't like it, you then go into the next red light, and that's you try to do something about it, meaning that you try to fix it. So what you might do is you just might do something as simple as go read a book. Or perhaps you might go watch a movie or call a friend. Or you might even do something spiritual like go attend church or do some kind of church activity. Or you might even read the Bible and pray. Now, have you ever read the Bible and prayed when you've had an unsettled thought or feeling in your life? And yet reading the Bible and praying hasn't worked. It doesn't mean that God's not at work. It just means that He wants to do something deeper in your life that goes beyond your own efforts. But when you're in that process of trying to do something and it doesn't fix that unsettled thought or feeling, it leads you to the next red light, which I found is all of a sudden you have a revelation that you're out of control. And why would you be out of control? Because you have a runaway thought or feeling that you've tried to fix that you can't get fixed, and now you have a sense that you're not in control of your life. And when you have that feeling, it leads to the 4th red light, which is you just don't know what's going on. Now, it's one thing to be up here, to have that thought or that feeling that just makes you feel unsettled, but it's another thing to just be in total chaos where you think, I don't know anything that's going on. I don't understand what's going on in my life right now. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know why things in the past all seemed like they were in control, but now I've lost that control. I don't know why the things that I've done aren't working. And here's the really critical red light that we run when we get to this point. It's kind of like cresting a hill and just going over the top of it. We then begin to believe that what I'm feeling represents what my future is going to be. Meaning that if I'm feeling this way today and I have this sense of this loss of control and I don't know what's going on and nothing I do can fix this unsettled thought, I begin to believe that's where my future's going. So then I begin to go further and further into this spiral of worry. And when it's not just taken over my current moment, but it's taken over my future, I then really have to double down and work hard and go into the 6th red light, or run the 6th red light, and that is I go out and try to do all the self-help things I can to fix it. Now, over here, you did some things on your own strength and it didn't work. Well, now you think, well, maybe someone else has the answer. So the secular world goes to self-help. They'll go to people who will give them a list of 3 things or 5 things that they can do to overcome this unsettled thought or get out of this worry spiral or cycle that they're in. But it's no different for the Christian person. It's just that the Christian person goes to Christian teaching, and teacher A may have a list of 3 to 5 things that you need to do, and when that doesn't work, the next Christian teacher might have a different list of 3 or 5 things to do. And the reality of it is that in your mind, you begin to think that if I just understood the problem better, things would get better, and pretty soon you've moved into pride and you go, I get it all now. I have an understanding of how all this stuff is working, and yet the reality of it is that even though I understand my problem, even to the point where I've gone through the self-help and I know how it's impacting my future and all this, I still end up in anxiety. And see, here's the real key thing. Just because you understand something in the process of what's going on, or possibly how to get out of it from some people telling you how, doesn't mean that the anxiety will go away. Now, I remember in my own life when I first really realized this, and it was in relation to finances. It was in relation to business finances, because I run a business. And it really doesn't matter if it's business or it's personal, there's nothing like a financial issue that gets your attention. And I remember one month in our business, it was going to be really tight. We needed God to really come through and to provide something that was just beyond what we could do in our own strength. And as He always does, in one way or another, He did provide. And I remember at the end of the month being so just floored. God, what do I say in You having provided? And instead of me, or the response that I got back from Him was a question, and He said this, well, David, how about I ask you this question? How about, or how many times do I have to provide for you before you'll trust me for the next month? And you know what my answer was? Just one more, God. Just one more. And I guess that's really the issue, is that we are in times of having to trust God, we just simply ask, can You just do it one more time? Can You just do it one more time? Now, one of the real problems here, one of the real issues is this idea that I can get myself out of my worry and my anxiety. And that's really, as you become anxious, that's what happens, is that worry and fear and all those things kind of invade your life. But I found that the secret to that is in stopping this before it gets to here. And the reality of it is that when I first learned how to deal with this, or discovered how to deal with this, I might have gone all the way through and gotten to the 7th step and said, no, I won't go any further. Now, I sure had to go through a lot of turmoil to get to that point, but it was better than going in and just giving my life to anxiety and to fear. Well, the next time, instead of me stopping at this red light, perhaps it was over here. And pretty soon, after several months, I realized, wait a minute, I'm not in control of anything anyway. I've always thought I've been in control, but I haven't. So I stopped here. And before you know it, I got to the point where I realized, if I could just not run this red light here, it would save me from having to go through all of this. Now, here's the mistake that most people make at this point, is they think because they understand all of this, that that's what will give them victory. That somehow the Christian life is all about living up here in the mind. But the Christian life is not about knowledge, it's not about understanding, but it's more about revelation. It's more about, how do I get what's in my head that I know to drop 18 inches to my heart? But even after it drops into my heart and it begins to work on the inside, how do I get it to flush out into all of my life? And as it flushes out into all of my life, that's where we get the answer. And so what I want to do is I want to show you really how that flushing out, how do we get this victory over worry and fear and anxiety and all those things that come along with it. How do we get that victory? How does it come from our head, all this information that we know about God and that we know about how we're supposed to be anxious for nothing, but in everything, in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let our requests be made known to God. And in Philippians 4:6. And we know about Proverbs 3:4 and 5 that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean over here on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him and He'll make your path straight. I mean, we know all of that. So how do we get the practical representation of that coming out into our life? Well, we need to access the life that is greater than the one that we have. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you the three aspects, really, of what a person can give themselves to in getting over this anxiety and fear and worry. And the first thing begins by you opening the abiding door of your heart. And what I mean by opening the abiding door is simply this. You have Christ in your heart and when you invited him in. And now, on a moment-by-moment basis, you want that life of Christ that's inside of you to get out of your heart and flowing into all of your life. He remains in your heart or he gets out into your life based on this thing called the abiding door that we see in John 15. And that idea is this, that when you go in your own strength and when you go in your own pride and say, I can, I will, I'll do, you close the abiding door and you shut off the life of Christ in you. But when you respond to him and you come to him and you say, I can't, I won't, I don't have the strength. Jesus, you come be for me what I can't be for myself. Immediately that humility pops that abiding door open and the life of Christ that's inside of you begins flowing through all of your experience and all of your life. And that's what we want, is we want him not just in our heart, but flowing throughout all of our life, and the abiding door is what allows that to happen. And with that abiding door open, the second thing that you'll see is that you want to judge your thoughts and feelings. Now, why do we want to judge our thoughts and feelings? Well, we come back over here to the board, and where does the first red light? It comes down into feeling unsettled. And I feel unsettled usually because I have an unchecked thought or feeling. Now, let me ask you a question. We're told that we're like sheep in the Bible, and there are only two voices that sheep hear. One is the voice of the shepherd, and one is the voice of the butcher. Now, the butcher's voice is what? Loud and driving and judgmental and commanding and creates turmoil, and all it does is what? Prepares you for death. But the voice of the shepherd is very different. It's light, and it gives life, and it gives peace. And so you and I have to, with the abiding door open, begin to judge our thoughts and our feelings. And when we do that, we simply reject the thoughts that lead us to fear, and we receive or take in the ones that bring peace. And when we do that, we stop at that first red light. And if we can avoid going through that first red light, it keeps all the spiral of defeat that ends up in worry and anxiety and fear. It keeps us from going into that. Now, at this point, another mistake that a lot of people make will be this. They'll go through this process and then they'll wait. And if God doesn't immediately do something and take away those thoughts and feelings and all that worry, then they think, oh, it doesn't work. Well, here's the point. God is in control. We learned over here just a minute ago that we're not in control of anything. He's in control of everything. And in control of everything, He is going to determine whether or not He wants to immediately take away from you all of the worry and the fear and the anxiety, or those thoughts that are not of Him, that are judging and condemning, and to give you victory immediately. Or He may allow them to linger over the course of a couple of hours or some days or even a couple of weeks, just because He's trying to use those to give you a better revelation of Christ. Whether He immediately takes everything away or whether He delays, don't fall for the mistake of thinking that if it doesn't fall exactly the way that you want it to go or expect it to go, that somehow God's not working. He is working. Now, at this point, what's the one thing that you can do when you're done with this video to begin this process? What's the now part of this? And I really think it comes down to this. I want you to take a piece of paper, and you have a history with God, and I want you to replay in your mind all the things that you have experienced with God. It could be how God provided for you financially. It could be how God worked through a relationship problem that you might have had with someone. It could be a situation where you had an illness and God either healed you of that or has worked with you or been with you as you have gone through that. Whatever that is, you have a history with God. I mean, you have a God. And so with that, write that all on a sheet of paper. And as you write that on a sheet of paper and you have all that, you begin to see how God has worked in your past. And then with that sheet of paper, I then want you to take it, get alone with God in a very quiet place, and simply go through this three-step process here. You open the abiding door through humility, saying, God, Jesus, I can't, but you can. Come be for me, my thoughts and feelings. Then you begin to judge those thoughts and feelings. Those that bring you a lift and lead you to peace, you accept. Those that don't, you reject. And then you stand in faith through all that and wait for God to move. And what you'll find is that as you go through this process, it's far better than having to go through this spiral of defeat that ends up in anxiety and worry. And what you're doing is you're standing right here at this point of an unsettled thought and feeling, something in the center of your life that says something must be wrong. You're stopping at that point and saying to yourself and declaring, I will not run that red light. I will, from this point forward, go with Christ at the center of my life. And as you do, and as you open this abiding door and judge those thoughts and reject the ones that aren't of Him and receive the ones that are, you'll begin to see that over time, God will have done something in your life that you couldn't have done on your own. I'm David Stevens with Belief Changers, reminding you this one thing: no life lives better than the one that abides in Christ.